welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, PrecisionHydration.com.
Precision Hydration offer electrolyte drinks in different strengths to match how you sweat. Personalise your hydration strategy at PrecisionHydration.com and get a free box or tube of pH worth up to $9.99 using the code Oxygenaddict.
And also a massive shout out to our patrons
who support the show with a monthly donation. You can get our 2018 Rob Patrons Only podcast as a thank you.
You sure can, and that's actually just been released this week and finally managed to get my act together, Hels, and get that published this week. So thank you very much to everyone who's been a patron over the past year. You should have had an email that says, here you go, click this, and it'll send you to a page where you can have a listen. And if you haven't done, that's undoubtedly my fault. So just drop me a line to Coach Rob Wilby at Oxygenaddict.com and I will sort that out for you. Because I am not the sharpest with the old spreadsheets, Helen, am I?
No.
much as I'd like to pretend that I am Mr. Spreadsheet, I'd much rather be changing tyres on a race wheel than doing that. So massive apologies if you hadn't had the link. Just drop us a line and I'll sort that for you. And here we are, back on, Hels. You're here, you're back in the country. You've had, golly only knows how much travel you've done over the past 48 hours, but you're not long landed, and here you are on air.
I know. I'm looking at my watch now, Rob, and it says 10:25, which I think means that it's 10:25 p.m. in Australia, because it's not changed yet. My phone says 1:25, and that's UK. So, yeah, my body thinks it's 25 past 10 at night, I think.
You don't know whether it's yesterday or tomorrow, do you?
I have no idea. I landed at 9 a.m., not 10:25 p.m. And it's a long way.
It is.
It is a long way, yeah. And it's weird though. So before we flew, my brother decided to take us to his local park in Sydney for laps on the bike at 6 a.m. And
nice.
We hadn't been out on bike, so Rich was on a borrowed bike. I was also on a borrowed bike, thankfully more the right size. And we joined the locals in Sydney, Rob. They're all up and about at 6 a.m, pedalling around Centennial Park, doing laps with lights on. It's crazy. It's like, I blooming love them. They love to get up and out. Then we went back, had some brekkie, and then took a last final trip to an outdoor pool. 50-metre, little bit salty. Absolutely.
Yeah, I saw those pictures on Twitter. That looked amazing. Right on the edge of the sea.
Well, so there's that one, which is at Bondi, which I think that was the day before. And I think that one felt a bit more like you go there to be seen. There weren't that many people really up and down. There were a lot of people just prancing around on the side. Whereas there's another one right on the edge of the Botanical Gardens.
Yeah.
And with a view of a Navy a ship. And it's just, it's stunning. So we had to go there for like one last swim. And then made our way to the airport and then sat on our arses and watched lots of films and watched more films and tried to sleep a little bit and probably watched a few more films. So yeah, I feel like I've done my cinema trips all in the last space of 22 hours.
Squeezed them all in.
To go again for another, year or two.
Don't you love the idea of a city where you can meet loads of other people for a ride at 6 a.m. any day of the week, and then you've got your choice of like 3 or 4 outdoor 50-metre pools right on the edge of the sea where you can go and have a swim afterwards.
Well, seriously,
just amazing.
More than 3 or 4, and you're just like, wow, we've got like 3 or 4 in the country.
Yeah.
If we're lucky,
it's
a few
mad,
more maybe,
it?
but it's just honestly, I will absolutely miss the outdoor swimming pools big time, and even up on the Gold Coast, that really was. Everyone was up and about at 5:30, 6 in the morning, doing their running or out cycling. Like the one guy I hired my bike from said, "Oh yeah, like I usually go at 4:30 in the morning."
Wow.
Just like, yeah, these people.
Why wouldn't you? It's going to be
exactly. Why wouldn't
99% of it being sunny and 70 every single day. So get out there and do it, right?
Totally. And then we saw other friends. Actually, Rob, my God, I can fill you in. Like, give me 60 seconds, and I'm going to tell you everything that I've done since I last spoke to you.
All right, come on. You've got 60 seconds on the clock and that's it, Hells, and we've got to talk about triathlon.
Yeah, okay, ready, steady, go. So, trail running in the Blue Mountains. We went to an AFL game, so we saw Aussie rules. It was amazing. We did a surf lesson at Bondi. We did sea kayaking. We went stand-up paddleboarding. We went to Palm Beach, which is famous for home and away. Loads of stuff. We kind of rammed it all in. We went to an RSL club, which is obviously what locals do. We did, what else did we do, Rob? Loads of stuff. There you go. But it was the Aussie rules, the surfing on Bondi, over to Manly. It was just, great week in Sydney.
Love it. Sounds perfect. You missed 2 days of sunshine in the UK.
So I hear.
Which we'll talk a little bit more later on, actually, in Coach's Couch today. I want to do a bit of section about exercising in the heat because a few of my athletes have just been saying, look, what is going on with my heart rate at the moment? And then obviously having watched the London Marathon at the weekend, wasn't hot up our way, but down in London was just baking during the marathon. So we'll do a section on that in Coach's Couch later on. And also it's worth flagging up that today's interview of the week is with the wonderful Joe Skipper. So we finally got him back on to get an update on his racing last year and hear about his plans for the upcoming year. So tune in for that later on today. So should we kick off with a bit of results, Hells?
I think we should, Rob, with precisionhydration.com.
Sure, indeedy doody. Right then, you can get a free tube or box of Precision Hydration worth up to $9.99 using the code Oxygenaddict. If you're not a long-term listener of the show, Precision Hydration are our friends and they make a fantastic product to help with your rehydration. And I don't think Hells has been a better example of why we need to take care of our rehydration than the past few days in the heat here in the UK, right?
Well, quite. It was, I did hear and I saw lots of pictures of people, saying just how horrendously difficult London was this weekend. And just generally, I guess a lot of people will have been out and about training and kind of going, yay, get outside. It's warm. It's summer. Yeah.
Well, the thing I really noticed, especially when you have that first hot spell of the year, is how different exercising in the heat is when you're not acclimated. When your body isn't used to it, it really doesn't know how to deal with it at all. And as much as we know this intellectually, you've got to experience it physically. So if you go out for an hour's run, you come back, you have a glass of water and you get on with your day usually. When you do it in the heat, you get back and you have a glass of water and you don't feel quite right. And then you have 2 or 3 more glasses of water. And then later in the day, I got a splitting headache and was thinking, this is all down to not having the right sort of rehydration strategy going on. I cannot do this in the heat anymore. The days of me being able to bluff my way through it in any kind of warm day at all are completely gone. So the temptation was to take a couple of headache tablets and crack on. But I thought, I know what's going on here. I know that I must have sweated loads while I've been out. So popped a couple of those salt stick tablets that they have. And sure enough, half an hour later, the headache had completely gone. So I know there's part of this comes across like it's advertising, and there is an element of it which undoubtedly is the guys sponsor us, so we like to talk about the product. But I was blown away by how, before that was in my consciousness, what I'd done is taken headache tablets. Now, having thought about it a little bit more and realised what the issue was, not having the salt in my body was the problem, and curing that problem took it away rather than treating the symptoms. So there we go.
There we go, Rob. Sorry, my mind was...
You went completely blank on me there, didn't you? It's all good. So upshot is, if you haven't tried it yet, get yourself over to PH. $9.99's worth of free product using the code Oxygenaddict. Right, so we'll jump into results from this week. Hells, and the first one we're going to look at was the result of Challenge Gran Canaria, where I think it's fair to say there was an upset in the men's race. We had a win in the ladies' race for Yvonne van Vleuten, which was great to see. She had another great race and brought it home in 4:38. So another solid race for her, and it's always good to see her racing well. But in the men's race, we had a win for... Now, I'm going to let you pronounce this because I could murder the name. I'm going to give you a go at this, Hells.
Okay, cool. So Pablo da Pena Gonzalez won from Spain. And Rob, I don't think I've said his name out before on this show.
No,
And that's the point, isn't it?
that is the point. Racing against what can, there's no argument about it at all. Andy Bocchara and Patrick Langer, two of the biggest names in 70.3 and certainly iron distance racing. The talk beforehand was all about their head-to-head. So where on earth this dude came from and took it to these two, it's just an unbelievable performance, isn't it?
Oh, I think it's probably like one of the best of his career. He was the long distance champion in Spain last year. He finished second in the Spanish Olympic Distance Championship. And I think over the past couple of seasons, he's been racing more, over the Olympic distance. So yeah, an absolutely storming performance from him, Rob. And he finished with a 1:09 half marathon.
Yeah, super, super fast run. So he's definitely one to watch, isn't it? And he's got the pedigree from his Spanish long distance championship, but it's always great when you see a new name arrive on the scene. And you can sort of say, well, it's early days yet. These guys are not, the big boys are not in their top form yet. But for a guy like him to take scalps like that is going to give him tremendous confidence going forward. And I don't think that's the last we're going to see of him for sure.
No, I think I think you're right there, Rob. And then in the women's race, Yvonne van Vleuten took the win ahead of Eva Commander of Poland and then Ana Nogueira Racha of Spain.
Loving the pronunciation. Nice work.
Thanks.
All right, next up, we are jumping over to Challenge Melbourne, where we had, I've got a soft spot for Sid, I'll be honest. I think she's great. I love it. I love her attitude to racing, and to see her up on the podium in her extremely funky racewear is great again. Annabelle Luxford took the win, but Sid got second place, which is great for her. That's another podium in a very short space of time.
Correct. And I think she and Radke were pushing each other basically for that on the run, and then Sid just broke away to finish in second, behind Annabelle Luxford, who had a comfortable win, Rob, in the end, like a 5-minute cushion.
Yeah, and that 5-minute cushion was basically built up on the swim over Sid, wasn't it? Took very close to exactly 5 minutes out of Sid in the water. And then in terms of bike splits, they're almost identical. And then Annabelle put another minute or so into Sid there. But it sounds like it was a great head-to-head between Laura and Radke in second and third.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, great racing down in Melbourne. And then Mike Phillips from New Zealand took the win in the men's race, Rob.
Did indeed. Right, so we're going to jump over a bit of coaching chat this week, which is based mainly off the back of this little mini heat wave that we've had in the UK, and a couple of athletes of mine racing in London at the London Marathon this weekend. Because I was sitting down doing my analysis of people's sort of races and race results and stuff, and I had 3 athletes race London who when you downloaded the data, I actually thought there'd been some kind of mistake in Training Peaks and it had uploaded the same athletes' data into different athletes' plans. Because,
really?
Yeah, it was spooky. Their heart rate trace, their pace trace was identical, in that kind of went what you'd consider to be normal for about the first 3 or 4 miles, and then the heart rate just went mental, climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed, until it was basically above threshold for all of the 3 athletes by the halfway point, and at that point their pace just collapses and falls away. But I double and triple checked, and even at different points had different windows open on the computer to make sure they were actually different files I was looking at. And that really sort of made me sit down and think, right, we've seen all these people really struggling in the heat. In the lead up to this, I'd had probably 6 or 7 athletes in the Facebook group saying, look, I've been out to do my long run in the heat and something crazy is going on with my heart rate. I felt as though I was running at sort of a zone 2 effort. My heart rate was up into zone 4. What's going on? Someone else went and did a long ride and said exactly the same thing. I wasn't riding any faster than 27, 28k an hour on the flat, which is my usual sort of riding with my mate's pace. My heart rate's gone up into zone 4. What's going on? And people's confusion around this seemed to be, what should I do when this happens? Should I look at heart rate and go, well, my heart rate's at threshold, so I'm clearly working too hard, I need to back off. But that doesn't tally with how it feels. And it's that kind of that mixed message that people are getting from the heart rate monitor, where they don't feel they're going really hard, but the heart rate that they're seeing is the same heart rate that would usually be associated with going bloody hard for 20 minutes kind of thing. And then, like I said, a couple of days later, we have these heart rate traces come back from the London Marathon. And so I've sat down and done a little bit of analysis over, what the data says, what the research says about what happens when we first exercise in the heat. And lo and behold, all the research says that first period of the year when you first exercise in the heat, basically what's happening is your body is really struggling to deal with firstly, the heat that your body is generating to shed that heat that your muscles make as you exercise. But it's also struggling to deal with the fact that you're not used to exercising in the heat, and the ambient temperature around you is 24, 25 degrees centigrade. And so the only response that your heart has got is, we need to get rid of this heat. How do we do that? We need to get more blood to the surface faster to get, to basically, if we run the blood under the surface of the skin, as it goes by, it's going to take some heat with it. And that's how we're going to get rid of the heat. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen when the ambient temperature is a simpler sort of temperature to your skin. So most people's skin temperature seems to be around 20, 22 degrees centigrade, and perhaps a little higher when they're exercising. Lo and behold, if the outside temperature is 24 degrees centigrade, and arguably at London, from what the athletes have told me, it feels like it's much hotter as you're running through London.
Yeah.
I think the temperature gets measured in the shade, and so if you're running directly in the sun, your skin is going to feel much, much hotter than that, right? So the end result being, your body's only reaction to this first exposure to heat is to try and get more blood to the skin faster, so it raises your heart rate. And there doesn't seem to be an easy answer to the question of, well, what should I have done differently? Because if you're not acclimated to the heat, there's very little that you can do on that first day of the year. And so I feel so sorry for all these athletes who've raced London on what's essentially like the second or third hot day of the year that they faced, because there just is no way for your body to acclimate to that heat. And you're left with this kind of genetic preposition to, does my body do well in the heat or not? And if it doesn't, you're basically in a really difficult position.
Well, it's like, as I said to you at the beginning, when we first recorded, and I said I'd been for a run in Brisbane when I landed, or whatever, a couple of days after, and I think I could do about 10 minutes, and then I had to stop and get water, and then I could probably do another 10 minutes, and maybe over the first week I gradually built that up and the ability to run. But people who enter the London Marathon, generally you're not going to go into a heat chamber. When do you ever need to go and do that? So you just, as you say, you don't really have that opportunity to even prepare for it. If you're going to be going to Kona or Hawaii, it's going to be humid, and you need to prepare your body for that, and you train accordingly. But people don't really expect to be running in 23.5 or higher degrees at the London Marathon in April, do they?
Well, it's a funny thing. I was thinking back, it's often hot at London, but in the lead up to it, it's often really unpleasant, isn't it? And
yeah, because you got to do all your training through winter, basically.
Exactly. And even in the run up to it, I mean, we had frost and snow, didn't we, 2 weeks ago here?
Yeah.
And so the change in the temperature can be from minus something to plus 25 degrees in a really short period of time. If you know it's coming, there are ways you can acclimate your body to the heat, such as, training indoors, training with more clothes on, all that kind of stuff is really good at heat acclimation. It's not great for actually building fitness, because it's so hard to run when it's like that. But I think the challenge is, as you said, it's so often really nice running temperature, sort of low teens in the build up to London. And if you do get hit by a hot race day, it's really, really difficult to struggle to deal with it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the only thing you can do is you have to accept that if it does get really hot on race day randomly like that, or even if it gets really hot and you've got a long run or a long ride scheduled, you have to do a couple of things. The first thing is you have to take your hydration and your electrolytes really, really seriously. You have to go out and think, right, I need to consciously drink more than I otherwise would have done, because there's no two ways. Your body is going to sweat a lot more in terms of volume than you used to, just because that's your body's way of getting rid of the heat. If you're then a salty sweater like I am, you're going to need to take shed loads more electrolytes than you used to, because of just the sheer volume of water leaving your body to get rid of the heat. And I think that you also have to just back off the pace and accept that today just might not be the day to be able to get that long run done. You know, a couple of my athletes said, what should I have done differently? They came with this attitude of like, oh, I've really failed. That workout was a total failure. I got to an hour and 15 and I was completely done and I couldn't seem to do any more. And, you know, a couple of weeks earlier, I was running 2 hours, no problem. The answer is there is nothing else that you could have done differently. You've just got to accept that certainly for the first couple of days of heat of the year, you've got to cut your workout duration down and you've got to back off the intensity while you allow your body to acclimate. And it's just really difficult if that happens to fall on your race day of the year, you know?
Yeah, especially something like London, which could be once in a lifetime.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've got a friend, haven't we? Nikki, she ran Boston the week before. She ran Boston in 3 degrees and freezing hail. And then London the week after or 2 weeks after in 28 degrees or whatever it was. So that's even harder to deal with.
Yeah, totally. It's crazy. Amazing to be able to, you know, do that back to back.
So I think something we need to talk about on a future edition is if people have got their big Ironman event lined up for later on in the summer, you know, if you're going abroad, you've spent thousands of pounds on travel and the big event and you're going to Austria or Germany or Roth, where it's often very hot on race day, it's worth giving some thought to, if it isn't hot where you're living and it, you know, you can see the long-term forecast in the medium. So if it looks like it's going to be hot for race day, you need to start giving some thought to ways you can do some heat acclimation work in the couple of weeks leading up to your race while you're tapering. So, you know, when you're not building your fitness anymore, there are ways you can help your body adapt to the heat, which could pay massive dividends at the back end of the marathon. Awesome.
Cool.
And that takes us to this week's interview of the week, which is great having him back on. I love chatting with Joe. We ended up chatting for like another 20 minutes after we finished recording the interview today, Hels, and got loads of gossip from him that we can't say on air. But what we did manage to get on air, we talked about Joe's last year, about his second place in Roth last year, about his hopes for racing Roth again this year, and going head-to-head with Seb Keinle. And then obviously his hopes for qualifying and going to Hawaii later in the year. So without any further ado, here is this week's interview of the week with Joe Skipper. All right, so it's great to have the one and only Joe Skipper back on the show. Joe, how are you doing today, my friend?
Good, mate. Now a couple of sessions. I'm feeling pretty tired now, but yeah, it's good to be back on.
And Joe, the weather's responded. When you finally decide to come back on the show, even the sun comes out to listen to the interview. So finally summer's here because you're coming back on the show, mate. Well done for kickstarting summer.
Cheers.
So listen, we've got loads to catch up on. We had you on the show almost exactly a year ago, back in April. The first thing I want to kick off by saying is congratulations on your epic second place at Ironman New Zealand. I know you must have been hoping for that win and gunning for the win as you came out of T2 on the shoulders of Terenzo. Now, we had him on the show last week or the week before, and he was talking about what a great event it had been and how much fun you two had riding together the back half of that bike course. So I want to get your take on it and hear your story about the day that you had out there.
Starting off from the swim?
Yeah, let's go right from the start, mate.
I had a good swim for myself, and if you took Dylan out of the equation, who was 3 minutes ahead of the lead pack, I would have got out of the water 2.5 minutes down. Basically I was 2.5 minutes down on like the main group of favourites in a little group behind them, which for me was a solid start to the day. Dylan McNeese was about 2.5-3 minutes ahead of them, so I was 6 minutes down on him, but only 2.5 down on the favourites. So I was pleased with that. Got out of the water with Cam Brown, so that was a decent start. Because
that's a good start to the day, isn't it, man? Someone to ride with.
Yeah, and I knew he would be fairly close to the start because it was when you get out of the water, you get all kinds of split. I was getting all kinds of splits. Like someone was saying you were only 2.5, 3 minutes. Someone said 6 minutes, and I thought, Jesus, like what am I? I was a bit disappointed when I had 6 minutes, to be honest, because I thought I'd had a good swim. So I was like, oh, don't tell me there's a group 6 minutes up the road. Yeah, luckily there weren't though, and Cameron distanced me by a little bit coming out of transition, 10, 15 seconds. So caught him on just after there's like a 2K climb out of transit, about what you start 2 miles out of transition. So I caught him on there, and there was another guy who was a strong rider called Lachlan. I didn't know him before the race, but I've seen his results since then. Like just what he's done this year and last year, and he was actually a strong cyclist. So me and him were working together. Cameron was doing a little bit, and then we caught the main group basically 40 k's in, which was brilliant. Like, I was over the moon with that because there was only Dylan up the road solo, and you knew that he was going to come back. It was just a matter of time. There was no way he was going to stay out there for 180 k's, and if he did, he'd be fried for the run. So then it was quite tactical. I tried a couple of digs to get away and was putting out some like decent power. I mean, like when I was putting in a dig, I was putting in about 380 watts, like for a bit of a sustained period of time. But because it was quite flat at that part of the course, and the group was quite big, it was really hard to get away. And I thought it's not coming to anything. So I decided to stay in the group, bide my time, and wait until you got to the climb before you get into Taupo, because it gradually climbs for about 10k. Like will go up a little bit, and then it will flatten out, and then it will go up a little bit more. But it's only dragging, but it's enough that if you put in a big surge, it makes everyone work. And even if people are drafting, it's a really good place to attack. So I thought, once I get there, I'm going to put in a big dig for about 10, 12 minutes and try and split it up a bit. And I did that, and it happened that me, Mike Phillips, and that Lachlan again got away, and then we ended up going through Taupo together. And then when we came up the climb, which you do from Taupo, Terenzo bridged across to us, and then that made 4 of us, and we all worked really well. And it was just basically people Lachlan fell off the pace. He got a bit tired first, and then just before the far turn, which was with 40 k's left, Mike Phillips got dropped, and then it was just me and Terenzo at the front for the last 40k, and we saw a time split on the main group with Cameron, Brown, and all them. And we were hoping, like, once we'd done the turn, that it was going to be quite big. We'd have been pretty disappointed if we saw that we only had a minute or two on them, considering the effort we'd put in. But luckily we had about 6 minutes, and then we just carried on working, and we knew that if we carried on working together, first and second would be between us two. And I was actually thinking I was going to beat him on the run, because I've raced against him quite a few times in Ironman. I was quite happy to take my chances, but yeah, fair play to him. He had a really good run, and he deserved that.
It looked like I was actually I happened to stumble across the live feed as that was happening, as you and Terenzo were coming out of transition, and it looked like you were coming out of an Olympic distance race. It looked like you were both up on your toes and really going for it. And I know when I read your blog, you said you felt like Terenzo really went for it out of transition. Were you running as quick as it looked like you were going as you came out of T2?
I don't know what it looked like, but I mean, I felt like I was running quite controlled. Like, I thought I'd probably go out in about 6:10, because I thought I know what Terenzo's normally like in an Ironman. I thought, I mean, no disrespect to him, but I thought he'll probably blow up about 13 to 18 miles in. Like, he'll start to hit the wall, and I'll catch him. So I wasn't really bothered about how quick he was starting by. I went through the first mile in 5:50, and he was a decent amount ahead, so he must have done about 5:40, 5:35. Yeah, pretty 5:30, maybe even 5:35. And he kept it going for a few miles, and he must have put a minute and a half into me in about, I don't know, 6k, something like that. I didn't feel great running though, to be honest. Like, if I'd have felt really good, like I would normally, I'd have been up for getting stuck in, and like having a man on man and seeing who's got it in them. But I knew that I didn't feel good on the run, and I knew I hadn't been running that well while I was out there. So I knew my best strategy for the race was just to run a consistent pace and try and get from A to B as quick as possible, and hope that he starts to blow up after, say, like the second lap. And then if I've got anything left in the tank, really push it and try and like catch him up or beat him. That was the only way I was gonna like win the race really on that day. But he run really solid, and I couldn't really do anything about that with what my fitness was like then.
Yeah, as you say, man, you had a great day. You went under the old course record. Terenzo had an outstanding day, didn't he? To go sub-8 on that course. I mean, it wasn't long ago. We commented on the show. It wasn't long ago that the only courses people went sub-8 on were Austria and Roth and Germany. Maybe occasionally Western Australia as well. To go sub-8 on that Taupo course is an amazing performance, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the roads are slow, and I mean, even the bike's long as well, so it's not even like it's a short course.
Yeah.
Slow roads. It was a great day for it, but that sub-8 on that course is pretty amazing.
Well, you must take a lot of strength from that because what was your bike time? Was it 4:19? Was it 4:18?
Yeah,
something like that.
4:19.
So did that take is that the bike course record now? Did you take that?
Yeah, I think I took about 3 or 4 minutes off the old course record, because the last time when I raced it, the course record was set by Dougal Allen, who rode about a minute or two quicker than me on that day. So I think it was a 4:22, something around that kind of time.
Well, that's exceptional, isn't it? To go as quick as that on a bike like that, and it doesn't sound like. I mean, I know you said you and Terenzo were working together and working well and doing 3 or 4 minutes each, but it doesn't sound like you were consciously totally hammering it. It sounds like it was a controlled but sustained ride.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I mean, I use a power meter for all my races, and the power I actually put out on that race wasn't that great. You know, I put out quite a bit more power in other races, because when I was on the front and I knew we were working well, I didn't want to kill myself, because at the end of the day, you've still got to run a marathon, haven't you? And I thought it's about just, you know, if we started the run with 8 minutes and we started the run with 10 minutes to the chasers, it doesn't really matter, does it? Like, you know, at the end of the day, we didn't get caught by the chasers. It was all about having enough time in the bank that and then seeing what you can do on the run against each other. Because I knew that at that point, when we were working well, it was going to come down to a running race with Terenzo. So I didn't want to do too much when it was my turn on the front, or go too hard, because I knew I'd be really inconvenient starting the run, and I wouldn't be able to go with it. And he was probably thinking the same. But I mean, so we didn't shirk it, you know, not try and not put the effort in, either of us. We both put the effort in, but we didn't put too much in that we'd kill ourselves. It was basically what you said, yeah, just a controlled effort, really.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. So the thing we haven't talked about yet is you've got a running battle going on with Terenzo, but behind you, were you conscious of the fact you've got like the legend that is Cam Brown running down? Did he run like a 2:41? That's ridiculous on that course.
That's a tough run as well. That's really up and down. So that is it. That's a sub 2:40 on most courses.
Yeah.
That is exceptional on that course. The year when I ran 2:45, I ran 2:38 at Roth later on that year.
Right. Wow.
So 4 months later, 3 or 4 months later. I mean, Roth course is quicker, and I was fitter, but still, you know, I think a 2:41's easily good enough to be a 2:39, 2:38 on Roth if you run it. But I wasn't actually. And it sounds bad. I didn't think that Cameron Brown would be anywhere near us, because I knew the time what we had. Like, we had 8 to 10 minutes on him starting the run, and I didn't think he'd run a 2:41. I thought he'd run a 2:44, 2:45.
Yeah,
which
totally.
is, you know, still pretty quick. And I thought, as long as I run a 2:50, he would have to run 2:39 to catch me. So although he was bearing down on me, I didn't think that he would catch me, you know, because I would have been really shocked if I hadn't have run under 2:50, even if I didn't feel that great. And I would have never expected him to run a 2:41. You know, that's 3 minutes quicker than what he did last time when I raced him, and he's 2 years older now.
It's exceptional, isn't it? Did you get to chat to him very much at the finish?
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He said I was going touring around New Zealand afterwards with my girlfriend for a couple of weeks, you know, doing all the tourist stuff. And he said if we wanted somewhere to stay in Auckland, we could stay with him for a couple of nights.
Oh, what a good guy.
Yeah. His son's doing it next year, I think.
You got to hope he's not going to race next year, man. He might go sub 2:40 on that course next year.
He said he's going to run it next year, race it next year. He said he wouldn't know what to do with himself if he didn't.
That's brilliant. Oh, man, that's great. Now, listen, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, obviously, your bike is in great form, and you're also going exceptionally quick for the watts that you're putting out. You've obviously changed bikes this year, and I've seen pictures of your bike, and it hasn't got a brand name on it. It's got Joe Skipper plastered all over it. So am I right in thinking that you're without a bike sponsor at the moment, Joe?
Yeah, I haven't got a bike sponsor this year, so I've just kind of covered the logos up a bit and trying different bikes out and seeing what's quick. But the one I've got at the moment is pretty decent. But I've seen Simon Smart from Drag 20, and he put me in the wind tunnel and helped me get a decent position, and he's really helped me in that kind of area. But yeah, I thought I was losing a lot of time in the previous year with the bikes what I was using, and with everyone being so into the aero, and with Simon Smart and his connections with Scott, for example, I thought I'll speak to him and see what we can do, and he's like helped me out with the position and the bike and everything. So yeah, I've been doing that this year.
Well, it definitely looks like it's going in the right direction. So I've got to ask you, like, look, if you can go 4:19 on the Taupo course, you must have been thinking that 4-hour bike split was on at Texas, right?
Yeah, because the Texas course is actually a bit short, because I've seen it on Strava from what people did. Last year I was down to ride it, and looking at the speed, what I averaged last year, up until when I punctured, and the power and everything, like my power was bang on 300 watts, which I'd done like a couple of times up until that point when I punctured. So I was pretty sure that I would have been able to keep that for the rest of the race, because I did, later on in the year I did 300 for Almere, which would have taken an extra 20 minutes longer. So I looked at what speed I averaged and what time I would have got, and I would have, if I'd have carried on at the same speed last year, I would have been on for a 4:03 bike split, because it is, that's what I would have done on that. So I thought around 4 hours would have been a good target. You'd have to get good weather for it, if you got really windy there, then it wouldn't be on. But I think that I would be 3 minutes quicker on the bike what I've got this year, with the position, the setup. On my other bike, there was no nutrition storage, whereas on the one I've got now, there's nutrition storage, so you don't have gels, all over the bike. And I think that's the thing where you really notice it on these Tribe bikes. They've got space for your hydration and your nutrition, which is made to make the bike more aero.
Yeah.
Which, if you're doing a normal time trial, there might not be a massive amount of difference, but you strap 6 gels on it and put bottles on the frame and everything, and all of a sudden you're probably losing 10 to 15 watts, aren't you? Which on these super bikes, they've got everything planned into it to make, and in some cases, the nutrition and hydration things that you have on the bike actually make it more aero. So I think that it could potentially be 3 minutes faster on good, like with the same weather conditions and everything. Better tyres now. Like last year I was running tubs, got tubeless tyres, so you're saving a bit there on rolling resistance.
Yeah. Good. It sounds like, as you said, it's a constant sort of arms race, isn't it, on the bike, with more and more people spending more and more time looking at more and more details to try and shave off little bits of drag here and there. And I was just reading an article earlier with your old mate Lionel Sanders, and he was saying the same thing. He was saying he's done this race at Oceanside. He's gone to race Jan Frodeno and had time taken out of him on the bike, and he said, I've got to take care of this stuff. I looked at his bike and looked at my bike, and everything's, as you said, he's got aero storage boxes, and I haven't got that on my bike. I need to take care of this stuff. I need to get my position looked at. I need to get in the wind tunnel. So everybody's in that same position of thinking we have to be right on the edge of science right now to get the performance, don't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I think the thing is, you have to do it just to keep even now, just to not lose any time. Whereas before, you would do it, and that would be an advantage what you have on everyone else. Whereas now, it seems like if you don't do it, you're losing stuff, and if you do it, you're just not giving away anything. That's what it seems like. So, yeah, I think you definitely have to do it.
Yeah,
just to keep on an even keel.
So while we're on the subject of Lionel, obviously he had his big breakthrough year at Kona last year, and obviously you weren't there at Kona last year, and you and Lionel had been really well matched the year before, hadn't you?
Yeah. When we've raced each other on the bike, when we raced each other in Texas, the year before, we were really well matched. I didn't really race him in and 16, I don't think. But
was it 15 that you raced him?
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
But looking at how the bike went anyway in Kona, because I did actually watch it, that would have been like a really good race for me. You know how it planned out with guys coming through from the chase pack on the bike and working their way up. That would have been like my ideal situation if I was there.
Well, that was exactly what I was going to say. I remember the last time we talked, you'd said how the nature of the sort of the long pace line meant people were kind of concertinaing up, and then there were massive power spikes, and then you'd be freewheeling to not get in someone's draft zone. It looked like last year was a completely different race, and it would really have suited you, that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would have really suited me. I think that it was good for them because Cameron Worth missed the lead pack, and I think that he would have normally been in that front pack with how he was swimming last year. That was probably his worst swim of the year on the biggest day of the year because he had been making the front pack quite consistently in Ironman events. So I think they were quite lucky that he wasn't there because I think what you might see this year would be him in the lead pack if he can keep on top of the swimming. I know he's doing a lot of cycling, so I mean I don't know if he's done the same in previous years, but if he is in the lead pack, then that would make the chase pack have a little bit less firepower. You know, it might have just been Lionel and Sebastian.
Yeah. Okay. And let me ask you this: your plans, are you all guns blazing to go back to Kona this year?
Yeah, I definitely want to go there. It's just the qualifications that are an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, sure.
Because I need about 1,400 points, and I don't. If I go to Kona, I want to go and qualify quite early. You know, I'm not going to chase around just to go there for the sake of for getting a finisher's t-shirt. I want to go there and like race, do a good race.
Yeah.
So I was really hoping to do Texas, and I booked my flights and everything, but I can't go because I got a niggle before Ironman New Zealand, sciatic nerve problem, which really flared up after the race. And I haven't run for 2 months. And I started running about a week ago, and I'd written it off, really, not going to Texas. Although, like I say, my flights were already booked, so I did have that in the back of my mind, I'll just see how it goes. And I started running about a week ago, and I thought, maybe I could do it. And I think I could run the marathon, but I don't know what effects that might have, long term. Like, if I was back to square one like I was after New Zealand, that would completely write off the middle part of the season. And there's no guarantee that you'd get a result if you haven't done any running. And it could potentially be even worse than that and write off the rest of the year or more. So I've had to pull out of Ironman Texas, and then I'm definitely doing Roth on the 1st of July. So I've got 2 options afterwards, which would be either do Frankfurt the week after, and I'd need to get a top 6 there, or it would be do Ironman UK 2 weeks after Roth, and I'd need to get a top 2 there. It'd be one or the other what I'd have to do. So I think, I don't know what one to do. Frankfurt course suits me, but then, it's a week after Roth, which is it's not good, is it? And then Ironman UK is 2 weeks later, but the course isn't great for me. The support's really good, like the home support and everything from being up there. But a top 2 is, I find, in a race like that would be harder than getting a top 6, in a regional champs, because I just find I do better in the bigger races. So I'm torn between what to do. I'm going to enter both, and I'll just see. And that'll be my last chance to get points, for Kona. If it happens, it happens. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I really do want to race Kona, but I'm not going to do any more events after that to try and qualify. If I don't qualify there, then the new qualification process is changing for the following year, which actually suits me a lot better because it's just, you nail one event and you can qualify, same as you get with an age grouper. So I would just look to get one done early and qualify and go for the challenge series again. But I do want to go to Kona. I do really want to go, but I don't want to turn up and be wrecked and just struggle on the run and come in 20th, 30th place. I want to go there in the best shape I've ever been in and contend for a decent result.
Yeah, it's really hard when a guy like you has got to do 3 races, 3 Ironmans in a season just to qualify for Kona, isn't it? And obviously, Roth is
just do 2 if I didn't do Roth, because obviously you don't get any points, do you?
Yeah. What's the big draw from Roth then? What is it that really attracts you to go there when obviously, the
atmosphere is incredible. Like, for starters, way better than Kona, better than any other race I've been at. It's unbelievable. their support around the bike. The run course last year was absolutely insane. Like the whole course was completely lined with people. Honestly, it's incredible. The prize money is great. You know, it's like $40,000 this year if you win it. Plus the race sometimes gives you a bonus on top of that, and with sponsors, so it's really good, like financially. I mean, for me, the last couple of years getting second in there has been really good with the bonus and the prize money and everything. That's kind of like set you up for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So that's obviously like really good because financially it can really help you. Because it's a job at the end of the day, isn't it? The race sets you up with a homestay, and I've had the same homestay every year, and it's really nice to see them. It feels like you're going on holiday and seeing them and everything. And it's just a great place to go. You just go there, and everyone's absolutely buzzing leading into the race. There's loads of English people over there, so it's really good. Like, who was at Raceforce go there, and they take a load of Brits there, and I normally see all them and like go out for a meal a couple of nights before, and it's a bit social. My dad loves it out there because of the beer. so he comes out all the time. It's easy to get to. You can fly there for £30 with, or you can drive there in 6 hours once you get the ferry.
Yeah.
So it's really accessible. But yeah, everything about it, there's just no negative for me with the race. The course perfectly suits me. The bike's not a drag strip, but it's not really hilly. It's good road surface, so you don't have to worry about getting potholes. You can race or like a puncture ruining your race so much. If you do get a puncture there, it's unlucky really because the course is in good shape. The run, as I said before, the atmosphere is brilliant, and it's a nice fast run course, but it's quite varied as well. There's lots of different bits on it. I mean, you've raced there as well, haven't you? So
I haven't actually. Unluckily, I've entered it twice and had to withdraw both times. I'd love to get out there one year, Joe. I really would. And that's the thing I love about talking to you. First and foremost, you're just a massive fan of the sport. It's the same reasons you're going to race Roth are the same reasons that it attracts thousands of people to race, because it's such an amazing event. And I think that speaks volumes about you, man.
Every year after I've done it, I thought I'll do something different next July. But then I think about it and I think, no, I've got to go back there.
You'll be one of these guys who's still doing it when it's my age. You'll be going back every year to do it.
I would, yeah, definitely. But if I wasn't racing pro, I'd be on the beers a few nights before as well, like really soaking it up.
Nobody goes on the beers before the race, mate. You can be on the beers afterwards. If I hear of you on the beers, man, I'm going to come out after you. So let's talk about the race this year then, out in Roth. I was having a nosy earlier on the start line. You've got Cam Worth is down to race. Seb Keinle is out there. James Kanama. There's some big names. There's some Jan Raphael's down. There's Michael Gerner. There's some really big, fast names racing there this year. It should be a fantastic event, man.
Yeah, it'll be great. It's good that Sebastian's actually racing, because that could actually play into my strengths if I swim with him. Yeah. Because hopefully I can try and stay with him on the bike, and then if I'm running well, I'd like to take my chances with him on the run. That suits me, because in the past I've kind of been a bit isolated on the bike. Like there's been the lead guys that have rode about the same as me, but because they've got to swim 3 or 4 minutes ahead, I've never actually seen them.
Yeah.
And then it's been a case of just trying to catch them on the run.
I remember listening years ago to a great interview with Chris McDonald, who he'd raced really well out there, and he came out the water a minute down, and he said it was really hard for him because there's all the press vehicles and all the lead vehicles clearing the way for that lead pack, and you don't get that if you're even a minute back down. And he said he could see them in the distance, and the crowds were sort of getting in the way of him, but not getting in the way of those guys at the front. And he said he thinks there's a real benefit to being in the very front pack, just because there's vehicles in front of you, firstly clearing the way, but also possibly not something to draft off, but there are places where they're so close to the vehicles, it makes it fast for the lead pack.
Well, I think they do motivate people a lot, because when you look at the results from it, there's always one person who ends up cycling really quick. Quicker than everyone else, because the bike course, although the road surface and everything's really quick, you ride around it and it's not a massively quick course. There's 1,400 meters of climbing on the bike course. Yeah. And I think that because of the amount of press and everything, some people do get Merc pace at the front, but especially on that solar bag, the one that you're on about, they definitely clear it there, and that's a massive benefit because the people, like, especially on the second lap when you come round, that's the more crucial bit because the first time there's no age groupers in front of you, so you kind of, although all the people are there, they do move out the way and you can go up at your own speed. But the second time you've got the back markers in the age group race going up there, and they're really struggling, on the climb. They might be going like 6 or 7 miles per hour, as you want to go up at 15 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So the people only move out the way to let 1 or 2 people through, and you have to take some chances. You just have to just try and go past them and just hope that people move out the way.
Yeah.
But you can't see the road there
Yeah.
because everyone's like covering it and standing there. But yeah, that would be a massive benefit. The second time up there, I reckon you could save 30 or 40 seconds.
Yeah,
because, you just get the cars would just clear people out and give you a clear run up it.
And of course, I think the chances are that that the TV cameras will put a camera on Seb Keinle, and if you're out the water with him, you're going to have your own sort of motorcycle escort there, aren't you?
That's why I think you definitely need to. For me, if I want to win that race, I need to make sure that I swim with him, and if I don't swim with him, then it's game over. There's no way it's going to happen like that. I need to swim with him ideally and be out of transition, at least with him or a little bit ahead, to give me a chance to put my shoes on, and everything like that, and to not make any errors. Because I think if I get out of transition 30 seconds behind, he's going to start off fairly hard anyway. He's going to have TV, motorbikes, with him and stuff like that. And I think if you're not with that, then that's game over. I think Cameron Worth's going to do a great bike out there as well. He's going to be really quick, and we'll be chasing him down on the run for sure.
It's all lined up for a fast race, isn't it? I mean, the chances are Cam Worth is going to really lay the power down.
James Keinle is a real solid athlete as well, so he'll probably swim front pack, and I reckon he'll be trying to hang on to Cameron Worth for as long as possible. Yeah, because he would be a big threat if he actually keeps with Cameron Worth or close to him, and you're starting the run behind him. You really put yourself on the back foot because he'll probably run pretty solid. He'll probably run sub 2:45 on that. He's
won it, hasn't he? He's won it in the past.
He's won it.
Yeah, good stuff.
When he's on form, he's really strong.
I'm looking forward to it, mate. I'm excited for you. So let's talk a little bit about the other couple of races you had last year. The one thing that I loved seeing at the end of the year was obviously, well, first you got second at Roth last year, didn't you? Again, so that's twice in second place at Roth.
Yeah, and that was on that run course that they had last year was really tough as well because they've changed it a bit now since then.
Yeah, they've changed it back a bit, haven't they?
Yeah, because I think people were caught out by how tough they actually made that.
Yeah, a lot of people I coached who raced that said, you told us it was going to be a really quick run course. It was horrible.
I actually preferred that run course. I actually thought it was brilliant.
Did you? Did you prefer the rolling aspect of it?
It was just really hard, and it just came down to like a strong man's race.
Yeah.
Like last 10K, you can really make some time up, and the damage can be done because I started the last 10K, and I got a time split to, I'm trying to think of his name, BMC guy who raced, I think he podiumed at South Africa this week. Can't think of his name now. Maurice Clavel.
There you go.
He started the last 10K about 2 minutes ahead of me. But I caught him up, and I put about probably 2 minutes into him. So it was probably like a 4-minute swing in that last 10K because it was so brutal, the amount of climbing you've done before that. And then the biggest hill, you have to run up, like you run it twice, but you run it on the second half of each lap. So, like up to the turnaround point at, must have been 35 Ks, you run up a 2K climb.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit flat, and then you run down it, So if you're kind of struggling 20 miles into the race, then the lights are just going out, aren't they? You end up walking up the hill, and he walked up it, and you lose that 2 minutes straight away, don't you?
That's it. You've got to be strong at the end. That's the key. And that's you've always been that, haven't you? You've always been that scrappy underdog who, if you give you a sniff of the win, your first time when you finished second at Roth, I remember the commentators saying you were in third place, and then they were like, "Oh no, he's in second coming into the."
Like a pit bull, mate.
Yeah.
If you give a pit bull a bit of meat, he ain't gonna let it go.
You've got to get that quote put on the back of your skin suit, Joe. And then at the end of the season, you had the ETU Championships, the Long Distance Championships for Europe out in Almere, and you turned out a 2:41 marathon to take the win, and again, second sub-8 time there, 7:59. And you had a right old battle with Victor Semestjev, didn't you?
Yeah, that was probably my best ever race that I've probably done. I would say that race. Like, you know, if you look at terms of like overall performance, we got out of the swim 2.5 minutes down behind lead first person, that was a decent swim for me. Out onto the bike. Unfortunately, I missed the turn at one bit because one of the marshals had gone home because the weather was so bad. And I couldn't see the group. You know, I was just like ahead of the guys I was with, but far enough behind, I couldn't see the lead group, and obviously they had a bit of an escort, don't they? So I took a wrong turn, but luckily the road ended about a minute and a half down this stretch what I took. And I was like, obviously, this isn't the way I go, so I need to turn around to come back. And then a member of the public said, they went that way. But I lost about 4 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was like, shit, you know, like it's as if I've done a standard swim as what I would have done before that race. You know, I'm now 6 minutes behind when I was 2 minutes behind.
Oh, heartbreak.
Yeah, but I thought, you know, like I've been in that situation before, and like 6 minutes down on the swim. So anyway, I just kind of rode my normal, like just did what I could, try and work my way up. Ended up catching them. One guy actually caught me on the bike, and he carried on going past. He was a really strong rider, Danish guy. I've rode with him. I've done a couple of races with him, and he's been really strong on the bike. So he got onto the run first, and I think Evert Schelsinger got on and a guy from Holland as well, so his home race, he got on the run second. And then there was me in third. I think there might have been one other person that came off the bike with me. I can't really remember now. But I knew Victor Semestjev, anyway, the guy who ended up running, was behind me. But I thought he was further behind than what he actually was, because I put a dig in with about 60, 70 k's to go, got away from him and assumed that I would have about 4 or 5 minutes, because I asked him on the bike, I said, how far behind are they? He said, they're miles behind. So I thought, oh great, you know, if I've got 4 or 5 minutes, then as long as I run, you know, if I run say 2:43, for instance, he would have had to run under 2:38. He's probably not going to do that, is he? And if I did run say 2:45, he would have had to run sub 2:40. So I thought I had it in the bag. So I thought, right, I'll just set off at my nice pace, not look at my watch. It was a 6-lap run, so the first 2 laps, and then all of a sudden he caught me.
Oh no!
And I was like, oh shit! Like I wasn't expecting that. And then it's like a real battle, then, isn't it? Because when someone catches you, generally they go ahead, don't they? But actually, just before he caught me, the bike kept coming in front of me. You know, the third place bike. I think I was in second because I'd already overtook 2 people. No, 1 person before that. So I had the second bike then with me, and obviously he must have got that guy soon after. So he had the third bike, but the bikes kept the guy from the third bike, which was with him, kept overtaking me. So I knew he was behind me, but it took him ages before he ended up finally bridging up to me, you know, like 3 miles or so with this bike going in front, dropping back, going in front, dropping back. So I was like, I didn't want to look because I didn't want him to see that I was looking over my shoulder. But I kind of thought, well, he must be slowing a bit, because if he was running really well, he would have, you know, run right onto my shoulder, wouldn't he? But anyway, he ended up catching me after 2 laps, I think. And then I thought, right, just stay with him. I thought, he's an old boy, you know. He's in his 40s. He's probably not going to have this.
Steady, still a spring chicken, Joe.
That's what I thought in my head, anyway. Whether or not it's right or wrong, you know, you try and tell yourself like positive things, don't you? I thought, right, he ain't going to have a sprint on him, Joe. I said, back yourself in the sprint. So I thought, right, I'm happy to play it, you know, to wait until 300 to go and just, you know, go for it. So that was my game plan. I thought, at worst, just make sure you stay with him. You don't have to set the pace. Doesn't matter how slow you run. As long as you're with him, with 300 to go, you can beat him. So my whole aim was to run the shoulders, and it was really tactical, the race. And I wasn't looking at my Garmin, looking at the speed at all, because I didn't care what pace I was running at as long as I was with him. But looking at it afterwards, there were some Ks in there where we were running like 3:35 kilometers.
Wow.
But then there was some where we were running like 4 minutes per kilometer. So it was really surgy, and I knew it was surgy when we were running because he was trying to drop me a few times. But I was running close to him, and I wanted to run really close to him, you know, like literally almost shoulders touching. because I wanted to put him off. So I was running really close. It was uncomfortable. I wasn't going in front, so sometimes he would slow right down to try and get me to run in front. But I thought, no, I'm not going in front because you need to drop me, and I want to see what you're looking like, what your body language is like. You know, I want to see how you look like you're struggling. And I was running like that. It must have really been annoying him for 3.5 laps, ages, and then went through an aid station, and he was really a bit slow at going through the aid station. Generally, he was fumbling quite a bit. But we went through an aid station with 10k to go, so about a lap and a half to go, and he just didn't get back onto my shoulder straight away. You know, on the other times he was fumbling, but he'd got back onto my shoulder within about 30 meters. You know, he might have lost a second, but he was straight back there. But this one time, he didn't get back onto my shoulder straight away, and I thought, go, just put the hammer down now. Like, so the game plan changed, and I thought, you've got to run hard. And I thought, if I run hard, he's got to run even harder, then hasn't he, to catch back up to me. So, and if he does catch back up to you, then just stay with him, you know, like, and to keep with the original tactic. So I just put the hammer down, and I thought, I need to run sub-6s for as many of these miles as I can, bearing in mind, you know, it's 20 miles into the race. And about a mile and a half later, I knew he was a bit behind, and then actually it was quite funny because a guy from the organisation came up to me. He was on a bike, and he said, Joe, and I was like, what? And he was like, I'm from the organisation. He said, the organisers have said if you go sub-8, we'll give you an extra €1,000.
Oh,
so
really?
So I was like, all right, here we go. I was like, time trial it. I thought it was quite exciting actually, and then I was just pushing. I got to the end of that lap, so it was with 1 lap to go, and they said you've got over. I asked the guy what the gap was, and he said, oh, you've got about a minute or something like that. I was hoping it was going to be a bit more, but yeah, it was about a minute. So, but I thought hopefully that'll be enough. I just went as hard as I could, and then when I got into the stadium or the arena area, they said he's got 1 minute to go sub-8, and then I had to sprint, and I just got it by like 20 seconds.
Oh wow! How did it play out in your mind, sort of knowing that and you've got a really hard 10k to go? That must have been firstly it's exciting, but was it not agony as well? Just thinking, oh, I've got the win, I could ease off now.
Yeah, it's painful, but that's the whole point, isn't it? You want to take yourself to the limit and see what you can do.
Good man. That's brilliant.
And when you're in first, it always hurts a lot less than when you're chasing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so.
It was hurting, but I was like, I hadn't won a race for ages, and I was in that opportunity, and I was like, I've got this, keep pushing. And then once when it was 2 miles to go, it was like, right, I need to go sub-8. I didn't know what I was on for, but I just kept pushing. But you were just in the zone, you know, and then when I crossed the line, I was smashed, really smashed.
So listen, we're heading towards the end of our interview now. Let's wrap this up. We've already talked about your plans for the rest of the year, which is you want to have a really good head-to-head with Seb Keinle and Roth, take him down. Ideally, you then want to back this up probably at Frankfurt the week after and bag yourself a Kona slot.
Yeah, Frankfurt would probably be unlikely, to be honest. I think, to be honest, it would be a 75% chance that I'll do Ironman UK because a week after is just so close, isn't it? You know, I don't know if that would be possible, but I will enter it. But I think the likely chance would be Ironman UK. And I haven't been, last time after I did it, I thought I want to go back there at some point and do it. And, you know, I've got loads of people who I know from the local triathlon club from when I used to be there. So I think it will probably be Ironman UK. It's actually quite exciting thinking that I might be Ironman UK because I've done it before and I've got unfinished business there. So I think, you know, it kind of answers your own question, doesn't it, really, as to what race?
There you go. We've made the decision for you live on air.
I think it will probably be Ironman UK. I'll be very surprised if it's not.
Yeah.
You can come and support me, Rob, then.
2, right? The only problem is you'll be sending me off down the road again to give you time splits like you did last time.
You'll have to give if there's other people there, give them funny old time splits, like keep changing it, really play with their mind.
Oh man! All right, Joe. Listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Congratulations on what sounds like you more than anything, you're just having a really good time doing what you're doing. And I think as long as you keep on doing that, the results are going to follow. I love talking to you because the passion for what you do just comes through.
Whenever I moan about what I'm doing, one of my friends always says, well, I'll swap with you for a day, Joe, and you can come work on the building site with me. And then I think, yeah, it's not too bad, is it? It might be raining, but I'd rather be going out cycling or, running than working on a building site for 10 hours in the piss and rain.
Yeah.
You always think the grass is always greener on the other side, don't you? But then when you look at what you're doing, you think, yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Fantastic stuff. All right, man, listen, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Get out there and get you running back in form, and we look forward to seeing... I'm picturing another Iron Wall with you and Seb Keinle and the run in Roth, man. It'll be fantastic to watch. That would be
great. I would love that to happen. I would be so excited for that.
Oh, fantastic stuff, man.
Cheers, great chatting with you anyway, Rob.
You too, mate. Thanks again.
Rob, I love that he's going to be in Bolton.
Yes. I love that he talked himself into it while he was on air. That was even better. Because when we were chatting beforehand, he said, I think it's either going to have to be Frankfurt or Bolton. And I think Frankfurt is a week after and Bolton's 2 weeks after. And I was like, oh, I don't know whether he's like, yeah, the back-to-back weekends thing's hard, but if I want to go to Kona, I've got to find the point. So it'd be great having him back. It's virtually a hometown race for him, isn't it? Because he used to live in Manchester for many years, and loads of his mates from Manchester Tri Club are up this way still. So it'll be great to see him there chasing down the win. It'd be great to see him finally take that out. And it's always good for British athletes to win the British race, I think.
Oh, definitely. And I remember we spoke to him when he crossed the line the other year when we were there, Rob, and he was so gutted not to have...
He was, wasn't he?
He was so gutted, yeah. He was so gutted. So, yeah, it'll be cool, though, to see how he goes at Roth as well.
Well, I think it looks good. He's doing the right things. He's putting the swim miles in because he knows that head-to-head with Seb Keinle is his ticket to the front of the race. And Roth is renowned as being a fast course, but I think part of the reason it's fast for the front group and perhaps not quite so much for the second group on the road is that as they pass through the age groupers on the second lap of the bike, they've got the race cars and the motorbikes coming through in front of them. And those guys, even if they're 30 seconds or a minute down the road, they haven't got that. And then trying to climb the big hills, going up the Solarberg, they're at the mercy of the crowd as to whether they can get past the age groupers who are in the way. So if he's with Seb Keinle first, I think they'll bridge across together and get to that front group. And even if he doesn't bridge across, they're going to have a TV camera bike there with Keinle, and that's going to clear the way for them. So that's massive for him. If he can get on Keinle and swim with him and get out of transition with him, then it'll be a completely different race to even if he's 15 seconds behind him getting out of T1.
We will be tuning in, Rob. Absolutely, we will be following that with interest, won't we, when it comes round?
We sure will. You said it. Right, so next thing up, coming up races, we have got big race this weekend is Ironman Texas, isn't it?
It is, Rob, and two people I'm very excited about seeing how they go. Meredith Kessler is one of them, Rob. She's going to be racing for the first time since having her little boy Mac. So that she had said, I remember that she wanted to make her comeback, or she'd be back racing at Ironman New Zealand, but no. She's too close. So she's pushed that back, and she'll be racing at Texas. And Kimberly Morrison, Rob, is also going to be racing.
The bike course is going to suit her down to the ground, isn't it?
Correct. So I'm very excited to see how she gets on.
It's worth pointing out, MBK has only been running for 12 weeks. She's 6 months after having given birth. It was 12 weeks before she did what she could consider to be a meaningful run again. Isn't that just mind-blowing that you're entering a championship race looking for the win on 12 weeks of running after giving birth? I think that's just... I don't know whether... I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to come out of it? My gut says that might not be enough run training to really contend for the win against that kind of, Jodie Robertson, Mel Hauschilt, Michelle Vesterby. It's a quality field, as it should be for a North American Championship. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how she goes. And, it's almost like the Rachel Joyce thing. You're an underdog again. You've pressed reset, and it's like,
exactly.
I appear to have a new body. Let's see how this new body manages to exercise.
Exactly. So it's going to be a great race. And And then Rob, in the men's race as well, Will Clark's going to be racing, isn't he?
Yeah.
Freddie Van Leerd, obviously skipper, is now not racing, but Brent McMahon, Tim Van Berkel, there's loads of them, Rudy Wild.
Yeah, now on Torsten's predictions, it's got Brent McMahon here predicted to be the race favourite, and it's predicting him a very low 8 hours. You know, him, Matt Hansen, Will Clark, Freddie Van Leerd, all coming in very close to each other. Having seen the shape that Will was in out in Lanzarote, I think Torsten's underestimating Will's ability on the bike. We know he's always been a fantastic front pack swimmer. I can't see anybody riding away from Will in the kind of shape that he's in at the moment. And then he's got the running legs to go out and really deliver, you know, a sort of mid 240s run. So I really think that he's in tremendous shape for this. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he goes. He's super hungry. He's motivated again. Obviously, he didn't get to race Kona last year, did he? Because it was his collarbone, wasn't it, that had gone in the run up to it. So, right. In terms of like medium and long term freshness, he's fresh and he's hungry for this. So, really looking forward to seeing how Will goes in this one. He's my little favourite for this. So.
He's your pick. Love it. Yeah, it will be following.
Very good. All right. So next up, other bits of news we've seen is they've announced the Zwift Tri Academy winners, and Bex Remington has made the cut. She's the Specialized Zwift Academy, to give it its proper name. So yeah, basically stepping up to race at that level, being super, super well supported by Specialized in Zwift this year. So
yeah,
be very interesting to see how these guys and girls get on this year.
I think so. I think it's a fascinating way to sort of develop the academy and, you know, develop talent as well, Rob. That the way that they have done that, because they did it as well for one of the women's pro cycling teams. That they used Zwift, I think it was, to do similar, to help pick a rider or two. So yeah, I think it's very, very interesting, and they're going to get, like, Lucy Charles will be, I think, helping with some of the Zwift stuff, and Tim Don as well. Yeah. So it's a great team to get on and to benefit from. So yeah, well done to the four team members who will be doing that. And then, Rob, the other bit of news that we've seen is that Super League Triathlon have confirmed that there will be a 5-race championship for the 2018-2019 season, and it will start off, we have to wait a while this time, Rob. It's going to be from late September, which will be Jersey, and it will run through to mid-March in Australia.
Going back to the Zwift thing a minute ago, what's interesting these days is this crossover between, you know, what makes a pro athlete and an amateur athlete, and the support that's being offered. And obviously the companies have made this decision. They'll probably get more return on their investment for sponsoring amateur athletes. Joe's not sponsored for a bike. He's basically bought his own bike for this season because he can't find a bike sponsor. And you think, doesn't that just underline how hard it is to... We've got a guy here who's finished twice second at Roth, arguably the biggest iron distance race in the world. He's a world-class triathlon cyclist, putting out some mind-blowing bike splits, hasn't got a bike sponsor, and huge companies like this are sponsoring amateurs at the same time. So it's a very strange time for sport, isn't it, where we're always led to believe that turning pro is the culmination of people who are good at sports. You know, there you go. If you really make it, you get to turn pro. And actually, there's now this kind of like dip in the road where if you're a really good amateur, Team Free Speed's another good example, really good amateur, you get all this excellent equipment and support sponsored to you. If you're a very top level pro in the top 10 at Kona, but then, I mean, there's no question Joe's of that caliber if he has the right race at Kona. But there he is chasing around the world trying to earn money, racing arguably more than he would like to try and make that money to buy his own bike, to go and do that. It's a very interesting time.
It has been a complete shift, though, hasn't it, in terms of what companies get back and what they now choose to focus on, and a lot of them have gone down the route of top age groupers and getting ambassadors on, because then people like spread the word, don't they, through social media and stuff. And if you're a pro and it's your livelihood and you're living it, just makes it all the more harder, doesn't it?
I'm starting to wonder if the way forward for pros like Joe isn't actually sponsorship through the traditional swim, bike, run companies, but say there's someone listening to the podcast and they run a successful, I don't know, finance company or whatever. Maybe they sponsor him, and they, their brand gets out there to the whole of the country and the whole of the world. That's like maybe that's the way that individual athletes are going to have to go in the future. Think outside the box of triathlon and be sponsored by, some financial planning people or a supermarket or something who would arguably get really good return on their investment in terms of people knowing them, but it's not necessarily a bike company paying for the bike.
Yeah, and I think a number of athletes have definitely gone down that route.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking, we speak to one of them on a regular basis, Nikki Bartlett. She's sponsored by a local sort of financial company.
Yeah. So there you go. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're thinking, I'd quite fancy sponsoring Joe Skipper, get in touch and we'll put you in touch with him. Help the guy out. And all of that basically brings us to the end of today's show. It's lovely to have you back in the country, Hells, but I think we'd better let you go so you can go and get some sleep.
I need to, do a bit of unpacking. And Rob, just to mention that we will be announcing April's Tribe Triathlete of the Month award next week. And in the meantime, if you want to get your nominations in for the May prize, then do email either me or Rob, Helen at oxygenaddict.com, or you can email Rob as well. Rob, what's yours?
You can just use help at oxygenaddict.com. And again, you can nominate yourself or you can nominate a friend, and you win a massive pack of 18 energy bars and shakes and all kinds of good stuff from our friends over at wearetribe.co, and also a Tribe t-shirt. So prize well worth winning, but we know you triathletes out there seem to be a little bit humble at either promoting yourselves or promoting your friends. So let's get these nominations in. The more of them we've got to choose from, I think we might start mentioning more of the people who get nominated as well, Hells. And we've had so many good ones this month, haven't we, that it can't just be the winner that gets talked about on the next show. So please get those sent through to us over email. Then we can give you guys and girls who are out there giving it some on the racing scene, give you some love. All right, that's awesome. It. Pretty much the end of the show. So thanks again to our sponsors, precisionhydration.com. Remember, you can use the code Oxygenaddict to get a free box or tube worth $9.99. All you've got to do is you've got to pay for your postage there. And other than that, thanks very much. Patrons, remember, if you haven't had the link yet to the patrons only show, we've got some real good exclusive interviews on there. And if you want to go ahead and become a patron, we'd really appreciate that. You can simply follow the link either through the show notes on iTunes, the show notes on the webpage, or just follow the link on the webpage there. We really appreciate you guys helping us out financially. It helps make the show viable for us. And we love it. We love doing the show. Thanks very much for helping support us. So until next week, I'm Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
Have a great, safe training and racing week. And Will Clark, if you're listening, get out there and rip it up at Ironman Texas. Until next week, we'll speak to you all again soon. See ya.